Hello again, I'm Rodney Reynolds from FreeGameMan.com, and this Q&A video is about 2.4 and 5 gigahertz wireless networks. Which one is best for you? Before I answer this question, remember, if you have a question for me, head on over to 3dgameman.com. Also keep in mind that you can post on 3dgameman.com anonymously. So what's the best wireless setup for you? 2.4 gigahertz or 5 gigahertz? Well, number one is where you live. You have to find out the regulatory policies or the regulatory acceptance, really, of the spectrum in your particular area. A lot of times, in most of the world, it's 2.4 gigahertz and not 5 gigahertz. 5 gigahertz is pretty limited, so figure that out first. Next up is your current infrastructure. If you have a lot of 802.11b and G devices, 2.4 gigahertz access points, routers, extenders, and all that kind of stuff, I would leave it the way it is. There's no need to upgrade unless there are other issues at play. It's going to cost you a lot, especially in a large company, unless you're doing extremely well. Similar thing applies to home, unless you can afford it. There's no need to upgrade to, 5 gigahertz technologies. Now, how far do you want your wireless network to reach? If you have a small home, a small apartment, then a 5 gigahertz system will be more than adequate. However, if you have a large home or a very large facility, then I would go with a 2.4 gigahertz setup. Now, that might surprise a lot of people. Typically speaking, a 5 gigahertz setup won't give you as much range as a 2.4 gigahertz setup, because as frequency increases, range decreases. So keep that in mind. Now, that doesn't mean if you have a large facility or a large home, you can't go with a 5 gigahertz wireless setup, because you can. It will just mean that you'll need possibly more access points, more extenders, more things to, broaden and extend that wireless network, whereas you probably wouldn't need to do that if you had a 2.4 gigahertz wireless network. So it's possible on 5 gigahertz, and if you want to go 5 gigahertz, you can certainly, but it will cost you possibly a little bit more. Also keep in mind that range will vary depending upon a number of different factors, like, for example, if you're above ground, below ground, the size of the building, the shape of the building, what the building is constructed of, interference, and so on. I'll give you an example. If you are like in a basement or a couple levels underground and you're surrounded, by earth and concrete, a wireless network is not going to work that well at all. So you need to figure that out before you invest in, a lot of wireless technologies that in fact might not work for you at all. So going wireless might not even be an option. You might have to go wired. So what about performance? Because performance in a lot of wireless networks is key even at home. I mean, if you're streaming a lot of HD content, you need a really good, fast wireless network. So in that case, go with 802.11 and 5 gigahertz wireless technologies. Now, why is a 5 gigahertz wireless network faster than a 2.4 gigahertz wireless network? Well, it basically has to do with the 5 gigahertz band. There's more spectrum availability. Also, you need to push a lot more bandwidth to the 802.11 and optional 40 megahertz channels as opposed to the 20 megahertz channels. And that's a lot of technical jargon there, but the fact of the matter is you will get significantly faster speeds from a 5 gigahertz wireless network over a 2.4 gigahertz wireless network. So if performance is key, then, well, you know which one to go with, 5 gigahertz. Finally, what about interference? Because that can be a big deal, depending upon how much RF interference or radio frequency interference there is in your particular home or office. Maybe there's microwaves, cordless phones, and other devices that will interfere with that 2.4 gigahertz system. In that case, if you have a lot of interference, I would recommend going with a 5 gigahertz wireless setup. I hope this answers your question. Remember, if you have a question for me, head on over to 3dgameman.com.